Hello, hello, hello. Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody? Is Restream working or frozen? Ow, and it caught up. And now? Now that looks okay. All right, it says I'm live again. Welcome. Welcome to 21st Century Adulting Office Hours. I am your host, Travis, and we're going to talk about adulting because it's been a week, including not starting the show on time and interrupting the show a few minutes in and having to restart it. So at some point in time, this video will be out there for people to watch after the fact, and this will all make no sense, and that's fine. I had to get through that. Thanks for bearing with me. We'll talk about this past week in adulting. I guess I'll start with today because it's the most fresh and it was a good, exciting day. I had a lot of stuff planned and I got it started. And I got to about 9:30 and then plans changed. And I think one thing that I still struggle with as an adult is you got to learn to go with the flow sometimes. I rewind this just a little bit. I got plans. I got this podcast that I've been collecting my notes on for the last week, taking my time to don my fireproof pants because I'm going to talk about the two things you don't talk about, that is religion and politics, in the same show, and my thoughts and some of what I've learned about the two in relation to them. But we're not getting into much of that today. Might touch on some parts of it as it gets related. So that was my big plan for the day. I've been ready to do this. Want to do this. I had some stuff going on this morning. I was going to do this, and I was actually at a new church this morning, and my phone starts blowing up like with 10 minutes left in the service, and I ignore it because you can ignore your phone for a certain period of time. I knew I was going to be done in 10 minutes. I wasn't going to interrupt the service or leave or whatever just to check my phone. I get out, and it's thankfully not a true emergency. It was Raceland, who started at UW Milwaukee a few weeks ago. He needed some help. He had an event on Tuesday night where he needed to dress up for, and all of his formal clothes were at his mom's house in Kokona. And she wasn't able to do it. Somebody had to do it. And I'm like, hey, this is cool. I'd like to see Raceland and go down. But it still took me a little bit of time to get over the fact that, my plans, I had big plans. I was going to accomplish something today, but I wasn't probably going to get a chance to do it. I'll admit to like 20 minutes of like even fresh out of church and spiritually charged in a good way. It took me a little bit of time to get over myself and my plans, because really it was a clear, easy choice to make. When your kids move off to college, I've heard this often the other way around, but when your kids move off to college, imagine maybe you've seen them 98% of the time that you are going to get to share with them in your lifetime and theirs is over. Even if you both live for 20, 30 more years, how much actually time are you going to get with them? And that opportunities probably get shorter and fewer and farther between as you both continue to, continue to age. I think I'm allergic to aging. I shouldn't talk about that. So it was a clear choice, right? And be there for him, whatever it is. If he has to dress up for something, as long as it's not a funeral, that's probably a good thing, right? It's a job interview. It's a date. It's something good, dressing up. So I changed my plans around, got ready, charged up my car a little bit because I wasn't fully charged. Still kind of new to this, like driving a couple of hours away with my electric car, even though I've had it for a couple of years. So I'm still fighting through some levels of range anxiety and learning how to deal with them and get comfortable with it. Turns out like it was absolutely, I knew it was the right call to make, and it was an absolute blast. I got to listen to a new book on the way down there. Just came out this past week by, oh, let's look this up so I don't murder it here. Luckily I had a credit left on Audible, so I bought it right away. I had other things on my wish list. I wasn't going to buy anything because I'm still trying to get through some of Ryan Holiday's stuff. But they had it, and I wanted to listen to it because it was relevant to that podcast that I'm working on for Critical Culture about religion and government, or state. Really government, they're different things, government and state. They really represent a lot of the same things, but part of the whole thing is, let's talk about like when people look at these concepts culturally, like where they came from, what role they serve in society, where's the overlap, where's the difference in a society built on freedom of religion. Where do you stand in terms of how that should work? So the book, getting back to the drive down there, the fun part was Separation of Church and Hate, a sane person's guide to taking back the Bible from fundamentalists, fascists, and flock fleecing frauds. Beautiful title, right up the alley. I was a little concerned, I guess, just by the title, that it might be kind of anti-religious, but it is not at all anti-religious. It's by John Fugelsang, so there's going to be some humor in there. I listened to about 3 hours of it so far, and the introduction is great. The first couple chapters are great. The synopsis I'm getting so far is some of his background, raised Catholic, but liberal in beliefs, a lot of different beliefs and types of people in his extended family, gave him wide exposure to some things. And his focus is on how to address what many see as the toxic side of Christian nationalism and evangelicalism, and some of the way it's practiced in the United States, the prosperity religions, how to counter if you do end up trying to talk to these people, whether they're in your family or in public, and you're not trying to start an argument about this or that. The best way is to approach them from the authority that they're claiming, or they're interpreting and claiming as the Christian right, and how it varies from Jesus's actual teachings. So a lot of it really focuses on Jesus and his teachings. The last bit that I listened to before I got home talked a lot about Paul and Saul, who turned into Paul, and how, Jesus was still a Jew. Jesus was all about transcendence and helping poor people. He never really meant to start necessarily a religion. That was more Paul's doing in the Roman Empire. And I think he was just starting after that to touch on like how the Romans chose to adopt and redefine Christianity to suit their needs, to help bind a diverse group of people together under a religion, and give some authority to the state in doing that. So really easy to listen to. I'm sure it's easy to read too. It's somewhat humorous without being offensive. Very well researched and understanding of Christianity, and many of the arguments on both sides, because there was definitely some conservative arguments that Jesus himself made. It isn't purely Jesus was a liberal socialist. I think it's it really, for someone who was raised in the Christian faith and went to church a lot when I was young, went to Sunday school, went through First Communion, went through confirmation, drifted away a bit, never really from the spirit of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, but kind of forgot exactly how all that went down, and what his words, the red words, actually were in the Bible, compared to where other people draw a lot from Paul, who had his own interpretation and who wrote letters that dealt with the specifics of his own time and didn't necessarily speak to the grander things that Jesus himself spoke to. So 10 out of 10 would recommend separation of church and hate. Thank you, John Fugelsang. I'd seen the name a bunch of times on social media in the feeds, always saying something on the point and hilarious. So very glad that I saw that somewhere this morning, and immediately I'm like, I need to listen to this. This is great. So that was a large part of the ride down to Milwaukee, about 2 hours away from where I live. I get there, and the timing worked out great. Raceland came out of the dorms right when I pulled up. I didn't even have to park. He just got right in the car. The challenge, so he had to dress up. Some of his clothes were still here. I was delivering. Some we couldn't find, including his pants. He's a tall guy. You go to big and tall shops, there's plenty of them around. But in Wisconsin, to be honest, it's a lot more on the big and not necessarily the tall and not big at all, which is Raceland's build. So he was a little bit concerned that it would be hard to find something for him. And I told him, like, you're right. There's a ton of places in Milwaukee, but they're kind of all over the place. There's not one place that has all the shopping because there's so much available there. So he did that. I showed up and he said, I think Men's Warehouse is the place I need to go because they got big and tall sections, and pulled it up on Google. I've heard of it before. Obviously heard of the commercials. We knew there was a guarantee he was going to love it, right? So pulled it up on Google Maps, and there was like a bunch of them all over the place. We went to the first one there, and the help was great. They had what he needed. Usually, like, they didn't have his size. It wasn't quite long enough for what he usually gets, but he tried some just 2 inches shorter. They're going to work out fine. That worked out good. He got the plain white shirt that he needed with it and the red tie. I got to figure out why he needed this fun stuff because I didn't necessarily ask him. One thing I've learned with kids, especially as they get older, is you don't want to ask too many questions. You can maybe, like I mentioned in the last show that I did, you can make a statement, and you might get more out of them because they feel free to offer up something if we're not trying to pry it out of them. So I took that approach with this thing, and it turns out he had brush week for fraternities. Almost goofed there. He had rush week for a fraternity, and he met some people at Phi Sigma Kappa, if I remember this correctly. Seemed to get along with them well, and that's what it was for. He met with these people over the last couple of weeks, spent some time with them, and he got, I don't know, votes or whatever it's called. He got approved, or he got invited to the fraternity on the campus, and I'm really happy for him. That's super cool. Smart kid. Obviously, it's good to go to college for the information that you learn, the opportunity to learn, like he's getting good math education down there in Spanish. But the social aspect of it, I think, is pretty important to him. And I think that's really smart that he was thinking that way, because that is absolutely like making new friends in a different stage of life. Like, you make your first friends in an environment you don't choose, with kind of like your common purpose being high school. After that, it's a lot more self-directed. Your people that you know before are kind of gone. You're a totally different person. You are now much more yourself, with still plenty of blank canvas to paint on in terms of who you are. And it's good to mix it up with different people and find people that are into different things and make new friends. So I had to ask, like, I went to college for 1 week. I went to tech school after that. I never really thought about fraternities. Like, the only concept I had of fraternities was from Revenge of the Nerds. Like, these people get together to throw keggers, right? And hazing. You hear about that because you hear about the bad side of all these things. So I'm like, man, I hope they don't do hazing too bad there. I hope it's not just all about parties. But it turns out a lot of these fraternities, many of you probably know, do a lot of good works. It sounds like a lot of the talk was really about they're there to help each other become better people and advance. They're involved in a lot of charities and other business-related activities, like exactly the kind of thing. Like, if you're going to invest in yourself and go to a university to learn and be on campus, absolutely do yourself the favor of not just going from kegger to kegger, but get involved in good organizations like this, or chess clubs, math clubs, role-playing clubs, anything social where you're getting to meet different people in the context of shared interests, especially anything that's going to also help you develop as a person outside of pure fun, like the charity things. Like I hear his fraternity does fundraising for Special Olympics, I believe, or volunteers with. I'm not sure. I am not a spokesman for his fraternity, but it was good to hear that the parts that he was able to talk about were more than just keggers, that sort of thing, and hazing. So that was pretty cool. And we had, I think, like I said, you'd call it the prototypical male experience buying clothes. If you're a somewhat normal size, you find what you want pretty much right out of the way. If you've done any homework, you go to a store. I think the only downside of going to the store was I am ADHD, and I couldn't just stand there and wait for him to try and close. They were taking care of the advice. He didn't need me to tell him what he needed or what worked for him. So I went walking around, and I found a couple of shirts that I'm kind of excited about. I wasn't planning on spending the money, but it was payday, and I got a new job. I'm in the office more. I'm still in a place where I'm trying to reinvest in my wardrobe. Yes, even as an adult, you need to do that from time to time. Just because those clothes that fit you from 4 or 5 years ago fit you doesn't mean you should necessarily wear them all. You can sell them. You can give them to community clothes closet or Goodwill or wherever you want to do with them. If you can afford it, it's not bad to buy new clothes once in a while. It feels good to be dressed well. And I had bought a pair of pants a couple of weeks ago, really nice, like blue pants. But the problem is I don't really have a lot of tops that go well with it. So I found 2 tops that will be great with it. I was excited. I know with some other activities I'm doing in my life, trying to set myself up for a pivot in the next few years to maybe still be doing some IT stuff, but maybe not necessarily being a full-time employee somewhere the rest of my life. I'm also looking for a suit. So it was nice to get into Men's Warehouse and see, they'll be able to measure me and take care of me. And they had some suits that were, I think, probably in the range of what I should be looking for. As a man that's 50 years old, the kind of things that I'm going to be doing, I should invest a little bit in dressing well. And it feels good. So hopefully I'll be in plenty of situations to wear nicer clothes. So that was pretty cool. And then we walked around Bayshore Mall a little while, getting back to the range anxiety thing. I wasn't fully charged. I charged up for a while before I left. I knew I would have to charge in Milwaukee. There's some Tesla superchargers by the Woodmans on 145 that I've used multiple times. They're great. Thought I'd have to use them. I get down there. After we buy the clothes, he forgot to get a belt. So we stopped at Kohl's to get a belt, and they had some chargers there. They were like the level 2 chargers, kind of slow. Kind of figured it wouldn't really get me there, but it was nice that they had the chargers. I plugged in, so we walked up to get some lunch. After that, took some pictures, gave it some time, charged up a little bit. Dropped him off at his hall. On my way home, and I'm kind of focusing on my book, my Audible book, a little bit more, and I got a little confused about the Google Maps route home had a stop for me to charge up because I couldn't make it all the way home. I thought I wouldn't be able to, but then after charging at the level 2 charger, I thought, look, I'll be able to make it home. Not a problem. So when Google takes me the other way around Lake Winnebago on Highway 43, which I'm turning out to love, it's really nice. I'm usually a Highway 41 guy, but 43 is primo. That's a nice road. So I'm thinking I'm going to make it all the way home and have plenty of time to talk with you guys tonight on the live stream. Turns out that wasn't necessarily the case. So here is where a little bit of range anxiety kicked in for just a couple of seconds. And I'm like, shit, I don't even know how this works. Is it going to lead me? It turns out it did lead me. There was the next stop. I could select from there, made it real easy. There was some superchargers at the festival in Manitowoc, and it was only 6 miles away. I didn't need to freak out. But even before I noticed that, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I got a AAA roadside assistance, and I looked at this specifically because I've got an electric car. they tow people if you break down, have a flat tire, stuff like that, and you need a tow job. If you've got gas, they'll bring gas to you. It turns out they do the same kind of thing for electric cars. When I signed up, it said that I would get towed if I need to be towed to charge my car. So if I would have broke down 10 miles, or not broke down, but ran out of battery 10 miles from a charger, they would pay for someone to tow me to the charger, and I wouldn't have to worry about towing. And like the year of this service is cheaper than towing by far, so it was worth it. And in some markets, they actually have like mobile chargers where potentially they've got something with a big old battery and some cables can come right to where you're flat or where you're out of battery. You're dead. I don't want to say dead. I don't like saying where you're dead. You're not dead. It's just your battery. Where your battery is out of juice. They will come charge you with mobile charging. So that was, I didn't have to use it yet, but that is another thing that I've done in the last couple of weeks that has helped me deal with potential range anxiety and doing some traveling longer distances. So that was all well and good. Got home. I had some challenges starting this up, but we got it going. I don't know if anybody has said anything in the chat. I haven't even checked. I've been busy wrapping up here. Turns out Restream still says we're good. Looks good on Facebook. Still, right? Yeah, we are live. Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's office hours. It's office hours. Can I change the title of this? Yeah, we'll go to edit. We'll see if this works. How does this work with Restream? 21st century adulting. Office hours. Sunday Scaries. Is that going to work for me? Oh, you don't need to do that. Can I do that on Facebook too? It says I can. And I go here. Does it edit? Yes, it does. Woohoo! A cheer for Restream. I don't know about Facebook though. I don't know about Facebook and go. It says I'm live. What's up, people? I'm still here. You may be here later. I might not be here when you're here, but I was here now, and I streamed this live. Honest engine. So that was that. The morning. Oh, yeah, let's get back to this morning. So we'll go backwards through the week. We started with my adventure during Sunday day. Sunday morning was part of the planned adventure. I mentioned that I went to church this morning. I went to a new church. Absolutely love it. I heard some of the people I volunteer with go there. I want to get this right if I'm going to name drop them because they seem like beautiful people. First, bring it up. There it is. The first Congressional UCC, Appleton, Wisconsin. I believe UCC stands for Universal Church of Christ. They call themselves the Open Door, the Church of the Open Door. Anyone is welcome at any stage in their journey. Beautiful, beautiful place to have a service. Lots of light, big windows. Some of the windows you can see a bunch of trees out on their property, so there's a lot of green space in there. Very calming. Today was a good day to be there. It was their 175th birthday. This church has been on the south bank of the Fox River in Appleton for 175 years. It was really cool. They read some of the quotes from like the 25th anniversary and stuff like that. Some of the quotes of what was going on, like when the church was only 50 years old. It was pretty cool. They had two people leading the ceremony. That was kind of interesting. There was a little bit of back and forth between them at the beginning. when they were making announcements and stuff like that. It was kind of fun. They both led different parts of the sermon, so that was pretty cool. There's a choir, beautiful organ, played well. It was more the kind of church that I was used to growing up, which is a little bit more formal, like Evangelical Lutheran. I think is like Trinity Lutheran in Wapaka. I forget the church name in Mayville. I was like 8 years old, and I don't remember the churches in Monroe, but I know I went there too. But a little bit of the, you're singing out of a hymnal. There's not like progressive music, progressive religious music up front. In a sermon with multimedia and huge, there was one place I went to in Appleton that I did like some of the sermons and some of the aspects of it, but there was no light at all in the hall. It was kind of dark, and it was kind of nice for the multimedia aspects of it, but this was a stark contrast with all the light and lighting some of the beauty from outside, and I really, really liked that and gravitated towards it. They've got their stream online if you ever want to check them out. But here I'll read a paragraph about who they are. So this is who we are from their website. We are a dynamic, intergenerational congregation of the United Church of Christ in Appleton, Wisconsin. We're committed to extravagant welcome, social justice, and transformative service and exploration, not dogma and rules. We are faithful to Scripture and seek to purposefully live the grace of God as witnessed in the life of Jesus Christ. We're an open and affirming congregation that truly means no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome. It definitely, when I read their description, it seems like the active part of it. Like there's a lot of volunteering. There's a lot of giving back to local communities in different ways, and who all knows where they give back. But I'm definitely interested in going back because I like the vibe, and that's also the kind of part of it that I'm into. Is I think that's the message. It's not just saying this is who we are, we claim this mantle. It's like, look, we're welcoming of people no matter what. We're here to support people that need support right now, and we're here to do good works and act in the community and let that kind of speak for who we are. So big props if anyone from that church sees this at some point in time. Thank you very much. It was fantastic. It seemed busier than I thought it would be, and I wanted to make sure I got into the flow and met people, because there was like handshaking and stuff like that at the last church I went to, but I didn't really seek out other people and have more than just a short conversation with them necessarily. Kind of a mistake on my part. But at this one, I tried to do that differently. So when I was in the parking lot, I saw somebody else that was there alone. It was an elderly woman, and I went up and I introduced myself and I asked her who she was and mentioned how I was new here, and I kind of gave her the opportunity to bring me in and introduce me to people and help me feel at home, meeting multiple people before the service even started. So I think if you're ever in that position, and if you're in a new place and you're trying to find a new church, I've been to 4 different churches in the 20 years that I've lived in Kaukauna, and this is the best one by far. Oh, and a Buddhist. It's not a monastery. I forget what you would call it. A group of people that practice Zen Buddhism. I've been to one of their services as well. But anyway, what really worked best about this situation was going up to someone right away and saying I'm new and getting kind of introduced to multiple people. And turns out she asked me to sit by her, Edith, and no, it wasn't Edith. Now I'm forgetting already. It's been a long day. I'll seek her out next time I'm there too. But she asked me to sit with her, and sat down to her friend she always sits with, who her son. I'm starting to sound old now, getting through relations of people here. But her son was the football coach in town at Kaukauna High School, and also the guidance counselor, school counselor, whatever it is, who's worked with my kids, and they've all had great things to say about him. And I got to met her. I think it's Judy Binsfeld. So anyway, first time I met them, I'll get their names right in the future. So that was pretty cool. It was also like a little small world moment. That was made me happy that I took the time to go there this morning, and I will be back for sure. That was a good time. And that was Sunday. And that was just Sunday. What other highlights do we have from the week? Let's see what kind of pictures I got here. I got some new toys. I'll probably do short videos about some of those. Some creator gadgets. I did some replanting. You probably saw that on Facebook. That was a lot of fun. Turns out it actually doesn't take long at all once you're set up for it. That was pretty cool. I spent a lot of time. I'm starting a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with some friends. I'm going to be the dungeon master, and I'm making up the whole world by myself. We're going to use the new 5.5 rules in D&D Beyond, where I bought the rules and I have a master tier subscription. They can use them all. And it's just easy if I can see all their character sheets. But I spent a lot of time on Discord and meeting with and talking to some of the people in the campaign. There are 6 other people that are players, and I'm trying to talk with them in like the tail end of making their characters, make sure I understand their background, help them understand my vision for the world we're going to be playing in, even giving them an opportunity to help define some things relevant to their culture. Like one is a dwarf, and we talked about what that dwarven culture is like in the nation that he comes from and how that fits into his character. Our character is a pixie, and that completely changed. I wasn't thinking about having pixies and brownies and sprites and all that in the campaign, but it actually makes a lot of sense for the kind of world that I'm building. So in her case, I'm working with her on creating like a homebrew class in D&D Beyond with the pixie. Like she had one that she made up on a different app, and I like some other skills that I've seen for homebrew pixies that are going to work well with some of the concepts in my campaign. No spoilers will be given. You'll have to wait, members of my campaign. So that was kind of cool. Another one is a kobold bard with a great backstory, and he is probably going to help. He's already helped me figure out how I want to be the society he comes from to be like, because his society is this nation state. It's called some Ilmian theocracy, where it's really like clerical magic runs the show, but there's lots of deities. There's approved ones and not approved ones. The dominant species in that is like all of the orcs and goblins and kobolds. Like they're all considered the same species or somewhat aligned species with different levels of cross-functioning. And they kind of have their own hierarchy. But anyway, he comes from that place. He's going to help me define what that is. So it's cool. It's both the setting in terms of the definition of what's going on. Like I'm setting the timeline and the major events in the world. Maybe they're helping define the cultures and how they work. The prevalence of either clerical or wizardly magic in their cultures. There's going to be some artificers in there and some element of, I would call it kind of steampunk, where I'm designing this concept of engineering isn't quite a class or proficiency, but it's something you can dedicate time to and get better at. And there is going to be like the discovery of gunpowder is relatively recent, and maybe some other fun things that will lead to an explosion of technology within a fantasy setting, kind of a high fantasy setting. So it should be kind of fun. I'm trying to get everyone to help me build the world so it's more fun, and I think it'll make for a better story overall. If it's something you're interested in, if we get enough stuff done, we may publish some of it as homebrew, and we'd be willing to take on ideas and stuff like that. What I love about Dungeons and Dragons is I like storytelling. I like a good story. I like to be in a story. I like to have my say, but I like cooperating with others. I like collaborative storytelling. And I think Dungeons and Dragons done right absolutely is that. And if you can be flexible a little bit with your rules, you've got your home rules. If you can be flexible with the setting, all the better. The more you can give your players the capability to define some of that campaign setting, you're giving them ammunition and license and prerogative to role play their characters more. They don't have to say, "Oh, can I say this? Is this true in my world?" They can say, "Hey, I can make this up on the spot," and just add that much more to the storytelling and make it more fun for everyone. Right? That's what it is. So it's my week, kind of my weekend. Very quickly, was pretty good. Been in the office a lot. I got, let's see, going back to the office still has somewhat of a negative rap right now. I understand a lot of people are in a state where they've just maybe been working from home for the past couple of years because maybe the jobs that require or enable that or allow that, and the companies and the technologies to allow that are a little bit more widespread. In my case, I've been working from home more than 50% of the time. Like when I say working from home, like 3 to 5 days a week for about 85% of the last decade. So for almost 10 years, let's say, maybe I should have just said that. For roughly 10 years, I've been working from home a majority of the time. Absolutely love it. 10 out of 10. Would recommend if you got the chance and you can structure yourself for it and learn how to do it well. It's great. You save time, you save money. You can be more comfortable in some cases and do better work. You can isolate yourself from collaboration in the workplace a little bit that maybe has to be done, but does it have to be done now? How can you wall yourself off and prevent interruptions? So working from home is a fantastic thing. I'm so grateful I live in an area where this is a thing. Also, I would say I've had jobs where I worked from home for years and rarely ever saw coworkers. It was a great employer, Virgin Pulse, Personify Health now. They did a lot of work from home because half their engineering is in Bosnia and Serbia. Half of it's in the United States, all over the place. In my case, they had an office when I was hired during COVID. They broke it apart. They still sponsored like monthly dinners. They'd let a manager take all the people in that area out to eat. It was great. They did some managers did like team building games on Teams. Great company, but there is no substitute, in my opinion, for face-to-face time with people once in a while. It's absolutely invaluable. If you can afford it, it's great. If your company, like Jewelers Mutual, where I work, they've got absolutely fantastic campus. Is a great location. There's like wooded trails around it. They got a cafeteria where the food is subsidized. They're just redoing all the cubicles with modern like sit-to-stand desks. It's a great place to be. And over the years, I've gotten tired of working at my kitchen table and being by myself and always looking at the dirty dishes and always having it's nice at lunch break to be able to go out and check your mail, eat something out of the kitchen, but the distractions get kind of old. And even if you're disciplined and you don't go do those, don't say, well, I'm going to go switch laundry right now. And well, maybe I'll fold it. If you don't do those things, if you're not even home, you don't have to spend your discipline. You're a disciplined, willpowered person. It's just who you are. But it is also some element I've found of constant drain to not do those things. And there's just something to being said for showing up. So I'm not telling you what to like, what you should be like in your career. Your mileage may vary depending on your company, what their facilities are like there. But for me, I have definitely appreciated going in and being in an office with working directly, like face to face with people on my team and related teams, and enjoyed having, instead of working on a table I have to clean all the time, in a kitchen I have to clean all the time, someplace where they take care of that for you. Really, really great. So that I think has been, looking back at the week, the biggest thing that I would point out in terms of a positive that I'll bring up. Obviously, there's other big news earlier this week. I'm not necessarily trying to avoid it. I think it's got plenty of play. I'm not going to mention that. I was horrified to hear that Charlie Kirk was murdered. I think that is just absolutely horrible. It is not It is far too common in our society. And I've tried to focus all of my online efforts towards pointing out some obvious things I think we all need to remember when we're looking at politically charged social media that's posted or commented on. I personally assume 2/3 or more of the comments on there are from bots and trolls, a lot of which just want eyeballs and clicks, or maybe they just want us to be pissed at each other. They want to see the world burn, whatever it is. I don't put a lot of stock in that being a completely accurate picture of what the temperature of America is. That being said, I still see enough agitated stuff on both sides of the spectrum that I've called out. And yes, I have called out people on the left, even during the last campaign, that talked about maybe never forgiving Trumpers or something to that nature. I don't even put up with that. That is something I will call out as not helpful political speech. It's not helpful speech in general. Free speech, sure. You got the right to free speech, but there's nothing good that comes out of that type of thing. I posted a video about I went into a Starbucks and I was waiting and I wanted to talk to somebody because I'd like to go up to strangers and talk to them and try to put a smile on their face, because it usually puts a smile on my face. And maybe some of that's from working from home for so long and being isolated and realizing you can get, even if like you're working from home, you don't have a lot of family around, when you're at the store, you're talking to a cashier or you're talking to just some regular guy at the Starbucks, you can get some of that positive social connection that feeds you and can make you happier, give you a better feeling, like more anecdotes that add up to how you feel society is and how it's going. So I talked to this guy. I was tempted, very tempted to not touch anything controversial. Try and touch something I think I could get us to agree on. Like I was going to take a shot here because I do want to move the needle in little ways with individual people. I want to practice doing it in non-offensive ways, but primarily because that's the effective way to do it. Not because I'm afraid to tell somebody they're wrong or disagree with something, but because it's effective. Most of the time, you're not there trying to skewer somebody and make them look bad so other people see that you want to fight. You're potentially trying to change their mind in some way, shape, or form. And it's hard to do offensively. Is that you, Rocky? Anyway, long story short, I posted a video about how it's good to just go up, and I avoided any talk of anything remotely political. I just asked the guy what he was doing, and he was going out on his boat on the river. I'm like, yay for you, dude. That's cool. I know that river where you're going. I fished there and I sucked, and just had a normal conversation, and it was great. So end of story. That was my week. It sounds like Rocky wants to come in because he just put his paws up on the screen. Kind of freaked me out. So that is 21st Century Adulting for the week. Sunday Scaries. I hope that banished some for you, and we will see you next week. Sunday or someday.